Hello friends, Mark Johnson here. Welcome to my introductory series on TRIRIGA development. This is the first video in a series of videos. In this video, I'm going to give a brief introduction to myself and my background so that you know why I'm doing these videos, and then I'm going to give a brief overview and introduction of TRIRIGA by logging in, showing where the different tools are, and talking a little bit about what the different tools do. I'm hoping to keep this video under 30 minutes, maybe even under 20 minutes. I'd like to make these videos just kind of concise as possible, small, bite size, easy to consume. They are going to be targeted and geared towards somebody that is new to TRIRIGA development. So uh, for those of you that have been doing TRIRIGA development for a long time, you may still learn something. I still am constantly learning things, even though I've been doing this for a really long time. Um, if you do like these videos or find them helpful at all, please do like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That kind of feedback will, you know, help me determine whether I should continue to make videos or not make them. If I don't get good response or feedback, then I may not take the time to do them because I have a lot of different side projects that I'm working on right now, personal tools and things like that interest me, and I would rather spend my time doing that if these are not being well received or if there's not really any interest in them. So again, like and subscribe. Thank you. Okay, a little bit about myself. My name is Mark Johnson. A lot of you probably know that already. You may even follow me on LinkedIn. I'm a TRIRIGA developer, kind of a development expert. I've been doing TRIRIGA development since 2009, and I used to work at TRIRIGA, the company itself, prior to the IBM acquisition. I was in the services group. I was doing implementations, right? I started off in TRIRIGA, got my certification, started on a project. There was an architect, a very well, one of our best people was on it at the time. It was Andrew Eno. God rest his soul. But after just being on that project for a couple months, they rolled Andrew off and they made me the tech lead on this project. So, which was very much in the way that things worked in TRIRIGA back in the day. There was a lot of sink or swim, right? You got put into positions and because it was just growing so fast and they needed bodies, and there's a lot of obstacles into learning TRIRIGA. So it's one of the things that I hope was helpful about these videos is maybe it can help others, learn about TRIRIGA, because this isn't something you can just go to the university and take. You either have to be, a business partner or work for a customer that implements it to kind of get the training to learn it. So there was, really kind of a lot of barriers to entry. Um, so I took over as the technical lead. Needless to say, this was, a huge project. The customer was very concerned, rightfully, that here I was, somebody new that was coming over and was taking over. And one of the first things that I did, because I happened to come onto the project just as it was going live with the space implementation, and they did a space audit, and they ran that space audit and took like 8.5 hours, which I thought was just crazy ridiculous. I didn't know any better at the time, and I guess that's kind of good, because then, without being told or asked or anything, I just set upon, trying to figure out why was the process so slow and what could I do to help improve that process, and it kind of led me to do, a deep analysis of the whole process, capture the workflows, see what all the workflows were, how long the workflows were taking, and really just kind of dig in and get a big picture understanding of this process. And I was ultimately able to re-architect that process, and I got it down to about 2 hours. Customer was thrilled, and it really kind of helped, cement me in their eyes that they weren't really taking, a big step down, that they were still going to maintain and receive that same high level of support that they were used to. Well, IBM acquired TRIRIGA, and when they did that, they actually moved a group of us, I think it was about 10 of us all together, out of the services group and into what were called the ATG and the enablement groups. And so the ATG was kind of like the SWAT team, Tiger team, whatever, right? They're the ones that would get put on, all the difficult customer problems to go in and figure out and see, what is going on, and see what needed to be done to try to resolve that issue, right? Whether it was, is it a training issue? Is it a defect in the product? Is it, is there a functional issue? Is it a technical issue? The enablement group is the group that I got put in that was responsible for doing, all the trainings and partner enablement, right? So in that group, I started teaching the development classes, the Platform 1 class, the certification class, as it was called at the time, which is now known as Platform 2, and the administration class, which is no longer, it was discontinued shortly thereafter. And then I also worked very closely with Troy Burnett, who was in the ATG group, and so whenever there was big customer relations problems, he'd get put on it. If it was technical, then he would bring me into it, and then I would, ultimately I'd solve the issue or problem, resolve it for the customer. I had a lot of great success, got to work on a lot of really interesting and complex problems. One of the last ones that I got to work on before I left IBM to go onto a business partner was the lease amortization. At the time, there was a customer that their leases were all like 40, 50 years, and so generating an amortization schedule would take about an hour or so, and they had so many leases that if you were to multiply it by the number of hours it would take, it was actually going to take longer than it was before their scheduled go live. So that was a problem, and they got everybody involved. They were looking at it from a database perspective. The platform team was looking into it. um, I got brought into it because I had experience with updating and workflow optimization of the space audit, and so I tore apart that process and used my experience doing implementation. That, hey, things like iterators are slow. I ended up removing iterators and taking advantage of some of the newer functionality that was in the system. This is right when the default behavior for the formula recalculation that went from being recalculated as necessary to do not auto recalculate, to where you had to be much more intentional in forcing the calculations, because otherwise the calculations would fire a lot over and over and over, and there was a performance impact there. So part of what I did was kind of refactoring and taking advantage of the newer technologies. The other thing that I did was I got rid of the iterators. I created a recursive workflow, and I also took a couple different workflows and combined them, because they were doing the same, roughly thing, right? They would go through and get all the PLIs and then do a calculation and then return to a parent workflow, and then another one would call and they go through those same PLIs and do another calculation, right? I just brought all those calculations together because they weren't, one wasn't dependent on the other, so it didn't need to happen. So got that process down to just a few minutes. So it was another kind of big win, and so I got to hand that off before I went on to a business partner, and I've kind of bounced around from business partners since then. My my goal has always been to try to become one of the best at TRIRIGA development. I figured if I say I want to be one of the best, then it doesn't matter where I get to, there will always be room for improvement, right? And I could just I could keep striving and trying to achieve it. I also kind of discovered in this time that I used to have to make a lot of the same mistakes that other people made as they were, learning and doing TRIRIGA development. I remember one time I was modifying the condition assessment work task form. And as per the naming convention at the time, you would rename the form to indicate that it was customized. Well, once I renamed that form that it was customized, it broke things. And there was actually some custom Java code that was being called in one of the workflows, and in that Java code somewhere, it had the form name hard coded. So by changing the form name, I broke that logic. So I had to restore it back, um, but it took me it took me several days to figure out what was going on and what was broken. And I remember going to my boss and telling him, I'm like, hey, did you know this? And he's like, yep. And I just was actually a little bit demoralized. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, had this knowledge been shared, it could have saved me days of work. And so I kind of resolved myself at that point in time that I was going to do whatever I could to try to share my learnings as much as possible to help others out so they don't have to keep stepping on those same landmines and those same mistakes, um, so that people can learn Tririga better, and do better and have more successful implementations, right? That's one of the problems in Tririga is that developers, they don't implement it very well. Too many are just caught up on getting the right answer, not on what's the best way to get there. And the implementations fail, and then Tririga gets a bad reputation, and then it doesn't do well. And I would much rather be part of a growing ecosystem than a shrinking ecosystem. So I don't mind sharing my knowledge. It's kind of been one of the things that has also sort of set me apart. So now that drive to share knowledge is leading to these videos, and I'm going to focus on the introductory level since that's what's been asked. If you guys do have suggestions for videos, please, reach out to me. And if there's enough interest in something, I will certainly do my best to make a video of it. So with that being said, that's enough about me. I do appreciate your time and your interest in these videos. And let's get into just a little high overview of TRIRIGA. So this is the login screen for TRIRIGA. This happens to be the latest version of TRIRIGA. This is the 11.1, 4.1 version of TRIRIGA. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as the system user. So whenever you install a new instance of TRIRIGA, there is only one user account that is created that you can log in as, which is the system user. So usually what you want to do is you'll want to log in as the system user. And in this particular version, it does now require you to change that default password for that system user upon login, right? Really a focus and interest on security. I can't tell you, there's been times that customers have had their TRIRIGA instance exposed to the internet, and they still had the default password and stuff for the system user. So anybody that was familiar with the TRIRIGA and the system user default values could log into their environment, and they wouldn't even necessarily know it. So the system user is kind of unique, because it only has a profile record. So one of the things that you'll learn about TRIRIGA in creating users, there's a people record and then there's a profile record. And it's actually the existence of the profile record that allows a user to log in, right? So I will share a little more about that when I get to talking about creating a user. So this is the application settings homepage. This is what's known as a landing page. When you first log in, there is the ability to set different ones of these. So from a technical or development perspective, what we're really interested in here is the application settings. There is a tab in here for the password. Well, it used to be actually, I think it's separate now. But you can see there's all kinds of different settings in here for the configuration. It is kind of good to go through here, depending on what you're using, right? Mm, You know, if you're lease accounting settings. But from an actual developer perspective, I'm going to come over here to the side. We're going to go to the tools. I'm going to click on it. Yes, I know I'm going to navigate away. So here's where the different builder tools are. So TRIRIGA really is just a glorified database. To be honest with you, you've got tables, right? So in TRIRIGA, you've got the data modeler. So the data modeler lets us define objects, tables, right? And the fields that are on those objects, right? Which would be your columns in your table, right? And you have all those kinds of properties and things, right? You say, okay, I've got this field, it's of this particular type, right? And if it's like a text field, right, you would give a size for that field, right? And then the TRIRIGA platform does the database creation for you. It goes and it creates the tables and it manages the tables. You don't have to be a DBA. You don't have to worry about primary keys and secondary keys and all of that, right? It's abstracted up a layer for you. So you go into the data modeler and you create those. So this is what the data modeler looks like. Over here on the left-hand side, you've got this bar that pops out, right? This is the object browser. So the data modeler, the first thing that we see here, we see all these different folders. And these folders are what are called modules in TRIRIGA. And then inside of the module, you have business objects. So if I'm expanding the location one here, each of these papers that go in the file, right? These are business objects. So the business objects are what correspond to a table in the database. So for instance, if I click on try building and I can see I've got all these fields here that make up this building table or this building business object, right? And then the properties over here um, are what is known as metadata, right? And the properties describe the table. So there's also metadata for fields. So if I click on a field, right, I've got all these different properties about that field, right? So not only is this a date field, right, you can set if it's required um, as well as, what a default value is and other things. And we'll talk about these more when we do the video on the data modeler and development inside of the data modeler. But just so you can see, you basically, the right-hand side is the properties window. So as you click on the business object, you get the business object properties. You click on the field, you get the field's properties. Over here on the left is what's called an association. An association is just a relationship between two objects. So we use strings to describe this relationship to objects. So the easiest way to think of this is like a teacher and a student, right? So if I'm the teacher and you're my student, right, then the association between us might be, has student. And then is student of would be the association coming from the student's perspective back to me. So there's what's known as forward and reverse association, and whether it's forward or reverse all depends on the perspective of the object, right, and where you're at. But the associations are used to define relationships between objects, right? And the system doesn't really care what association string you use. If you were consistent in it, then it's going to work, right? You could use the has association for every single thing, and you could get it to work. You'd create a lot of headaches and problems for yourself, make it certainly where it's not, developer friendly or intuitive. So you don't really want to do that. But if I scroll through the associations, you can see there's these yellow ones, the blue ones, and the white ones, right? These are all associations, but then the blue ones are a special type of association for hierarchies, right? These are what are known as includes. And the yellow, these are what are called smart sections. And smart sections just allow us to bring data over from another object to display on our object. And again, we'll talk more about those later. But if I were to, click on one of these, you can see again the properties window pops open. It doesn't matter if it's just a regular association and include association, although you won't see much on the includes because include just defines the parent-child relationship. So, and then if it's a smart section, there are more properties that are available, and the smart sections are created from the association. So you'd have to create an association first before you could create a smart section. But so you've got associations, field lists, properties. Um, there's what's known as the state family. So the state family just is really the life cycle of the object and what they can be on, and and what the paths between the states are. And again, we'll talk more about this when it comes to actual the BO video. But just so you know, this is life cycle, right? Life cycle of the records or the objects that are going to be created for it. And then there's the BO mapping, which we do use to define what makes a record unique inside of the table. So it's kind of similar to the primary key of a database, but these are the parts of the business object. I'm going to go ahead and go back to tools. And so after the data modeler, right, and then again, this is where you access modules and business objects. You've got the form builder. The form builder is the presentation layer, right? So we want to take the information that's in those tables in the database and we want to display it to the user. So I'll just stick here with the location and the try building. You can see the layout of the form builder tool is very similar, like with the business object, right? You have the navigation is over on the left, you got properties over on the right, and then in this case, the layout, right? So as far as the layout goes, on a form, you have tabs, which are what these are here that we see. These folders are the tabs, and then you've got sections. You see like the general section here, which I can expand, and then you've got the fields that go into that section. There are different types of sections, so you can display queries, which can, um, you know, be a list of records for you, or fields, maps. There's different types of sections, and we'll discuss those and cover those inside the form builder videos. But you do have your menu up here. You've got the includes forms here, where you get to define the include on the form, just like there was an include on the BO. It's that special association, that parent-child relationship, and it's what really defines in that hierarchy what objects can be created at that level in the hierarchy. And then the form has its own state transition because you can have multiple forms for a business object, right? So you don't have to have all the state transitions that are available on that business object on the form. So the building here is an example of that. There is a try building business object and there's a try building form, but there's also a try structure form, which just presents different data on that business object. May have even different state transitions, but it's still the same business object. And then there's a revisions tab where we can see the revisions, and then you can do things, compare, just kind of see what differences are, publish a previous revision, that sort of thing. So the form builder is all about the presentation layer. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. And so the form builder, you can see on the left here, it's by module, right? So even though you've got multiple business objects in a module, the form builder is not at the BO level, it's at the module level, is kind of how you do the navigation here. Not necessarily intuitive. You'd think it would be, at the BO since the forms are the presentation for the business objects, but And you can see up here there's 23. So you do need to pay attention, right, to how many there are and then how many are being displayed, right? So if we want to see them all, we can go up to 100. And then after that, you would have to, go through pages in order to identify them. The information that we get here is, right, we get the name of the form, the form's label, the underlying business object that that form is going against, right? So you can see here, try structure, try alt building, try external relocation, right? Those all use the same building business object. And then the status, whether it's, published, created, or it's revision in progress. So when you're creating something for the very first time until you publish it, it'll, be created. Uh, Anything that's published is what is the active version in the system and that the system is using. So you can revise a form or a BO in this case, um, and you can make changes to it without, things changing on the screen for the end users, right? That would be very unsettling, right? And then once you get all the changes you want, the way you want, then you can publish it, and then that's the version that becomes for use out in the system. The object label, we utilize the object label to help us understand what objects have been modified, right? So it helps us to identify customized objects, which we need to know for when we're doing application upgrades. The association manager, so you do have associations on business objects, and you also have this association manager. So the associations are tied to business objects, but they're a little bit separate. So for instance, you don't have to revise a business object in order to create an association on it. Um, there is this association manager. I never use the association manager because I can do everything I want from the data modeler. So historically, like the association manager, you could not use the association manager to create your include associations, right? Those had to be done from the business object. So as I was learning, it just, hey, I can always do everything I want from the BO, but I can't always do it from the association manager. So I just use the BO. I don't, and then I never run into a problem that if I can't do something. But this is here. Some people do use it. Um, Again, this is at a module level, and so you see all the associations in the module. So it can be a bit of a, information overload, and but it is here. We'll go back to tools. Workflow Builder. Workflow Builder is where the logic is. This is the closest thing to programming that is done in the system. Again, navigation on the left based off of a module, and then BO. There is the concept here of BO level, module level, right, and form level now that we've covered the different things. So workflows can and queries also can be at those different levels, right? And so they get named accordingly. So anything that's module level would be here under the location, under any, right? And so we were looking at building, so I'm just going to pick on the building. And so this isn't a very good example. Let me get one that has a few more things. So you can tell this. So this is the workflow. It kind of looks like flowcharts, right? And you're modeling the data flow, right? So the data goes through, and then the different tasks that are in the workflow builder perform different things and impact that data. So this can be kind of complex. There's a lot of areas that can go wrong, and you want to spend time learning and getting better at doing workflow development because just because you got the right answer doesn't mean it was the most optimal way of doing it. Classic example going back to that Lilly standardization stuff that I optimized and sped up so greatly just by redoing the workflow. So again, you got modules, BOs, and then the any here is module level. So you can see there's a location BO as well as a location module. Um, the the very first business object that gets created in a module is what's known as the base business object. And so by convention, you give that the same name as the module. Um, and there is significance to which object is the base BO, and we'll just talk about that a little more in our BO videos. And we'll get into great detail talking about workflows and the different types of workflows. How you've got synchronous workflows, and then there are asynchronous workflows, and then how they're triggered, and different places you can, put workflow. And we'll get into all the different tasks and the properties and all that in the workflow video. All right. So portal builder allows us to go and build portals, things like our landing page, right? So if I click home here, this here is called a portal, right? And because this is a portal that comes up when you first log in, it's called a landing page. It's just a special type of portal. But a portal is made up of sections. So you can see I've got this little section here, this application setup. There's the application administration section, the last visited. Right? These are all different sections. And then this application settings is another section, right? And this section actually opens up the application settings record, which is a real record inside of TRIRIGA. So inside of the portal builder, we have the ability to create new portals and put portal sections on it. There isn't a portal section builder that's here in the tools. You actually have to go inside of the portal, and then you can just pick any portal. And if you go to edit, right, you can see here's a portal. This is the layout. So in this particular one, right, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sections that are on it. And if I wanted to add more, I have to come down here and click on portal sections library, and then it expands, right? It pops open. And then these are all the different portal sections. So I can search based off of the name. I can select one, right? I can add it to the portal. Um, or I can go and I can actually, create a new portal section and then put it on the portal. So the portals just help us, navigate a bit, right, from a page. Speaking in navigation, there's the navigation builder. So the navigation builder is for the menu. So this is the menu, right? So you can see we've got different layers to this menu, right? I can click on requests and it goes in and manage requests, right? So this menu system, this menu, these layers, this is created in the navigation builder. So similar to portal builder, the navigation builder consists of two parts, right? So you have the main object, which are called navigation collections, and the collections are a collection of navigation items, right? So just like a portal has kind of a collection of portal sections, a navigation collection has a collection of navigation items, and a similar thing. To get to the navigation items, you have to actually go into it and click on navigation items, and then you have access to all the different navigation items. So if you were trying to create a new navigation item, right, it wouldn't matter what menu you modified to go to create it. Now, obviously, if you're going to put it inside of a navigation collection, then it would make sense to pull that collection up because then you can just, add it to the collection once you had it. Go back to the tools menu here, the state family manager. So there are a few default states that are built, or state families, or which is a collection of state and state transitions, right? So this try data revise is actually one of the most common ones, right? And again, it talks about life cycle, right? So starts draft, comes active, gets revised, eventually retired, right? So this just talks about it a bit. We see, which ones. These are the ones that come with the system. I've never actually created new families to add in here, but you do have the ability to do that. This data revise is actually probably the most common state transition family that you'll use. The report manager, this is for querying data out of TRIRIGA, right? So you can get information. It's broken up here into what are called my reports, which are my individual reports, community reports, and system reports. So the ones that are used, in the system by workflows and portals and all that sort of stuff will be here under the system reports. And so we'll just stick with doing try building, although I don't have any data in this particular system. So, but if I click into it, click on it to open it, right, here's all the different properties about the query. And I can define the columns that are going to show up in the query. I can, set orders for the columns for sorting, filtering. There's up here on top. There's user filters, and then there's system filters. So these are kind of runtime filters the user can put in. There's advanced actions that can be added or association filters. We'll talk about all these when it comes to the time for the query. But again, this is just for pulling data out for reporting, right? When you want to see lists of records and stuff that meet certain criteria, right? This is the tool. It's the query builder. And again, right, queries. There's this concept of level, right? So in this case, right, we've got a module specified, we've got a BO specified, and then all forms, right? So we know that the building has multiple forms, right? So this is actually a BO level query, right? Because it's not running against a singular form, it's running against all of the forms. So that's enough about the report builder for now. Scorecard manager. Another tool you're probably not really going to use very often, dealing with these objects in the system called scorecards for, I don't know. I've never really even actually used it. I don't think you can actually create scorecards. Yeah, I guess you can. You can do add and delete here with this query, but you can see this resolves all around WPM, which is the Workplace Performance Management. So we're not gonna. This will probably be more of an advanced video that we can get into. Data Integrator is just a tool for loading data into TRIRIGA. It's a very old tool, and it's not very robust. There is no data validation or anything like that, but it can be a quick and easy way to get information into the system. Object migration is how changes are moved between one object, one environment, and the next. You go in and you package them up. There's currency conversions, units of measure, right? Globalization is where you'd go for languages, style, so you can adjust how the kind of look and feel of TRIRIGA fonts and that sort of stuff. Um, the object label manager for managing the object labels. The performance, so you can capture performance of workflows and queries that are running. The BIM model management, as it said, the UX designers and stuff. This is for creating UX apps, right? And then you've got some different tools in here: a job scheduler, a report scheduler. You got your document management a manager for the management of documents, right? There is an area for that. These are all different tools, things that you may use, but the bulk of your work as a TRIRIGA developer is going to be actually, just these guys right here you'll be going to. Maybe a little bit on the license manager and security manager. Every user that logs into TRIRIGA has to have a license, right? And then the security manager, is for the security groups. So you define in a security group who has access to what, so that you can lock it down, and it can tie in with the organization and geography so that you can limit the people that can see things based off of their organization and geography. So the little tools page here has kind of everything for you. The other really important thing as a TRIRIGA developer, if you have it enabled, is the sitemap, because sometimes you don't know how to navigate to certain things. And so to have it here, so like for instance, you know what, I just don't remember how to navigate the integration object, right? Well, I can come to the sitemap and then I can use the browser's find functionality and we'll just say integration object and say, okay, here's the integration object. So now I can click on the link here. It's going to open up integration object. And now I can look at the breadcrumbs and I can see what the path is to get the integration object, right? I'd have to go under tools, then system setup, and then integration, and then the integration object would be there. So if I click and come back to tools, right, and expand it here, right, I can come and say, okay, tools, system setup, integration, and there's integration object, right? So the sitemap can be really helpful to help you learn how to navigate in TRIRIGA, what the proper route is, and I used it a lot when I was new. Still use it occasionally, especially as TRIRIGA, has kind of shifted and changed. Right, the menus used to be on the top, now they're on the sides, and now navigating, even though it's basically the same stuff, like it feels different. I find myself, getting lost a little bit sometimes. So I like to have the site map up and available. So that's just kind of a quick 30,000-foot view of the TRIRIGA developer tools and what's needed. So to get started, right, you would log in with the system user like I have. You'd want to go and create a user, which I'll demo that at another time. This video is already getting kind of long, so it's time to wrap it up. But I do appreciate your time and thank you for watching again. If you find these videos helpful at all, please do like and subscribe. Tell your friends to like and subscribe. Refer these videos to anyone who they might be helpful to. And have a great day.